level in this fight, but Lara will be extremely confident as well. 20,000 people at Headingley, the atmosphere is going to be electric. He's going to need a great performance to win this fight.
Finally, if you can get past Lara, what could be next for you?
Well, we sat here in this city about a year and a half ago, having booked Headingley to fight Kanzu for the Ring Magazine title, then we wanted to go to America and fight Santa Cruz. So if he wins on Saturday, that's all back on track, but first things first, he's got to do the business.
The most asked about Conor Benn. He signed a 5-fight deal, I believe. What's the route? Should he come through Saturday night?
The route is to be in some massive fights. I mean, the guy's numbers are on another level, both in terms of viewing figures, in subscriber drivers, in digital numbers, and he's so exciting. I just want to calm down a little bit, you know, when we're talking about Porter and Hearn and Broner. We've got to see how he deals with people like Granados. I felt Granados beat Broner. You know, I think he had a good fight with Porter. Danny Garcia's boxed at a very high level. Conor hasn't. But he's got bundles of potential, loads of heart, he's improving all the time. So this fight's going to tell us everything we need to know. I told Amir Khan, this is the fight. Conor Benn against Amir Khan is the fight. You know, he's not two guys who are just going to have a secret handshake and just take the money. He's a bloke who wants to go in there and take him out against a British boxing legend. So we'll see. First thing first, Granados on Saturday.
I was also on Khan, I saw pictures with him. Have there been any progressions from his talks with Everett?
No, I mean, you know, they're sort of... boring is a bit of a brutal word, but you know they're putting that fight out to broadcasters and seeing who wants to pay up the money. And you know, it's still a sizable fight, but it's not the fight that it was. I just prefer the Conor Benn fight. So, but I do feel like Amir's kind of at the stage where he feels that him and Kel can't hurt each other, but it's not fighting a young lion, you know, like a Ben or even more dangerous at the moment. You talk about Ennis and Virgil Ortiz and these guys. I think he wants to stay away from that group of fighters and just probably have a nice night.
If I just get an update on Devin Haney, I saw Ryan Garcia tweet something towards you this morning.
I just wish that Ryan Garcia would just fight Devin Haney. It's been mandatory for Devin Haney. He pulled out of that position after beating Luke Campbell. Ryan can criticise Devin Haney, but Devin's out there fighting. He's taking care of business. And I've called him this afternoon actually to put his next fight. You've got another mandatory in Dibiase. Come and fight him. He's so beatable. Oh, he's boring. Oh, he don't. Well, come and beat him. You can't beat him. So stop talking about him or fight him. And if Ryan Garcia won't fight Devin Haney, if Jojo Diaz won't fight Devin Haney, we've got to find someone that will fight Devin Haney. Maybe Giovanni Straffon, if he beats Max Hughes. I don't know. Richard Conning, someone with the heart to say, yeah, I'll step up and fight for the WBC World Title. Because the guys that are winning the final eliminators and getting themselves in a mandatory position aren't. But you guys have got to put it on them and say, why aren't you? You've just won a final eliminator to fight Devin Haney. Now you've pulled out. So we'll see if Jojo Diaz does the same.
The other thing regarding Devin Haney's comments is about the information that's come out regarding Oscar Valdez and the diuretics. Devin Haney's put the scope on that whole camp. Is it fair to do that? What's the reaction to Devin Haney making comments about Ryan Garcia and other people in the Renosis camp?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, but at the same time, I don't know enough about the Valdez situation. I think, as I've learned, that has to come into light. I'm sure there'll be an investigation and the truth will come out. Obviously I have a close relationship with Eddie Reynoso. I know him extremely well. I see him as an outstanding person. In this situation, sometimes there are many reasons that could be the truth, but the truth will come out in these findings and then we'll go from there.
And you described this fight with Josh Warrington as a potential career ender. Josh was with you, he went to Frank Warren, Frank got him the belts, he then defended in Leeds as well. Since he came back to Matchroom, he's had to vacate the belt, finds himself with a loss against Mauricio Lara. Do you feel a sense of responsibility as a promoter that Josh Warrington is in this position with Matchroom?
A little bit, even though it was out of my hands. Because when we signed Josh Warrington, we did a big press conference at Headingley, having done a deal to stage the Kanzu fight there, with Kanzu signed to fight for the Ring Magazine belt. Unfortunately, when Josh Warrington didn't want to fight Kid Galahad, he had no choice but to vacate the belt. He then lost to Mauricio Lara. So although I don't feel any of it was our fault, of course, I've been part of that process where it's all fallen apart for him. So I want him to win so desperately on Saturday. But at the end of the day, you have to fight and you have to win. And if he wouldn't have beat Maurizio Lara, we probably would have been here on Saturday fighting Kanzu or someone else. You know, but unfortunately he lost that fight and he's got to try and put it right on Saturday.
Have you kept it in your hands though? Because from that, Maurizio Lara gets signed, Galahad the belt is still with Galahad at Matchroom. Matchroom kind of benefit from the essentially at the expense of Josh Warrington.
No, I mean I think obviously we've heavily invested in the division, and the fighters that we've invested in have come through and won world titles. So I would have rather Josh Warrington won that fight against Maurizio Lara, and who knows what would have happened with everything else. But in the meantime, yes, Kid Galahad signed with Matchroom, he's got an IBF championship. Lee Wood signed with Matchroom, he's got a WBA championship. But we desperately want to see Josh win on Saturday night.
Can I ask you about the situation with Anthony Joshua? You've left Sky now, but you and Sky find yourself on both ends of the field trying to get AJ signed to either platform. What's the position there?
Wrong. I saw this a lot. There's a big difference, in our contract with Anthony Joshua is with Matchroom. Okay, we don't push him towards Sky or Dazn. We push him to the best commercial deal for him in association with 258 and Freddie, and of course AJ, who is the boss. So we're not looking to bring AJ to Dazn.
Is that not a deliverable for Dazn?
Is it deliverable?
Yeah, is that not an objective for Dazn?
Yeah, of course. Every broadcaster would love Anthony Joshua. And that's the problem that we're faced with now, because Sky, of course, see BT, Dazn, Amazon, so many different broadcasters have the desire to land Anthony Joshua. Sky, great platform for pay-per-view. He's hit some incredible numbers there, and right now it's just a focus on Usyk. But in the situation of AJ, it's not the choice of Sky or Matchroom and Dazn. AJ's with Matchroom, and we will work together commercially for the best opportunity for him, and we will look at all opportunities. As I said, sit down with 258 and the team and make the best decision for him.
Nothing more from me. Just want to ask about who just wonders. He came out and said that he'd take 5 million to fight Chris Eubank Jr. Is that viable? And also, he came out on social media and said that he hadn't been paid his full purse for the Canelo fight. Quickly taken down. Can you tell me what the position is there?
I don't know, really. I spoke to him about that, and he quickly took that down. He's been paid absolutely full purse of that fight.
After the social media post, or
no, before that. And then he put another one out saying I made him a multi-millionaire. So I was a bit confused, but I think in terms of the 5 million, I think that's about the right price for the fight. I think it's a huge fight, but I also think that Billy will need time to not just recover from the injury, but get back into shape. Do you know what? I'd love to see Billy back in the ring because he's a tremendous fighter. And when I watched him come out against Canelo, I thought he looked tremendous. Not just in the fight, but in the whole atmosphere. And he's the kind of character that can fight in those scenarios. So I hope he returns. Don't forget, he's also managing fighters with Dante Dixon and others as well. And I want to see him back in the sport because I think it's what he enjoys doing. So I think it's been difficult for him to deal with that defeat, but I hope we see him back in boxing.
Final one from me. There was a period during the coronavirus where you and Frank Warren were talking about meeting up and having conversations and getting fights sorted. The coronavirus period has kind of settled out, we're easing out of that, everyone's been jabbed hopefully anyway. There's no excuses now for you and Frank Warren to meet up and have those conversations. Why haven't they happened?
It's not really been on the radar. I mean, to be honest with you, no one's really followed it up. I felt the whole thing really.
You should be fine, shouldn't you?
Really? No, I'll just do what I do. I'm the best in the business by an absolute country mile. Hopefully you can be the same.
Cheers, thank you.
Katie Taylor is in a bigger fight than most suggest, David Giamonte told me. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, because I think Jennifer Hearn is the mandatory challenger. She's a former world champion. She's also a big lightweight as well. But I think that she's the favourite in the fight. I think that a lot of people, Katie's coming up, I think 35 or coming up to 35, people are sort of sitting there hoping, saying at some point, will she deteriorate or will she get a little bit old? I don't think so just yet. So hopefully she can win on Saturday and then we can move forward and make the Amanda Serrano fight. I think that's the ultimate fight to make.
Maxi Hughes seems to never stop going. If he wins this season with all the top guys at 135, the world is his oyster.
Yeah, it's a tough fight. It's a different kind of level to the level that he's been boxing at. And Straffon, I think Maxi's got a good style to beat Straffon. But again, like with Lara, Straffon's almost similar. We just don't know how good he really is. Like, is he a top world-class fighter, or is he just a tough Mexican with heart that can punch? So we'll find out on Saturday.
Away from this card, we've seen that Sky and Boxer have teamed up. They've taken what we thought was a few of the fighters. Savannah Marshall was one that I was a little bit surprised about, because you were definitely pushing her, speaking about making that fight with Clarissa Shields. Thoughts on that? How did that sort of come about? Peter Fury said the opportunities perhaps weren't there for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think when different fighters, I think Savannah was the only one that I was a little bit surprised by, but at the same time, she's been a Sky Scholar for, I think, 8 years. She's very close with Adam Smith. And, you know, with Huey and Savannah and those guys, I spoke to MTK, their advisor as well, the fighter's advisor, Daniel, and like, he dealt with Sky and they presented with an opportunity. And Peter texted me actually to say, look, we've got this opportunity. And he said, like, be honest, is Huey really part of your plans? And when you look, it's such a big opportunity for the likes of Huey Fury, because his last fight with us was with Marius Wack, who I think he was 3rd or 4th fight down on the card. Now he fights Hammer in his main event, so he's going to get loads of attention. So some fighters that might not have had the attention from Matchroom could now get the attention at Sky. And also a lot of fighters that couldn't even get on TV are now getting on TV, the younger fighters. So it's great for boxing. It would have been really disappointing to see Sky walk away from boxing after not just what we've done, but what they've done in boxing. They've been there a long time.
And just
2 minutes.
Just finally from me, Eddie. Josh Warrington this weekend, I know you've mentioned it, but if he loses here, is there any way back into the sport?
I think so. I mean, I think he could still move up and fight at super featherweight. It's a great division, but back-to-back defeats are always difficult.
Eddie, talk to me about the increase of price for the Dazn, $7.99. How do you feel the reaction's gone down with the fans?
Really good. I mean, other than standard modes, but I mean, I think anyone with half a brain cell would know that $1.99 was an introductory price. I think most people felt it would go to $9.99. I think the key really is when you look at, obviously Saturday's a huge night as well, so's Liverpool and Fowler in the undercard, but the keys are things like the Dillian White fight. You know, where you've got a night that is £20 with Sky, is now $7.99 for the same product, but also with a month full of fights as well.
Yeah.
So there's another big show to be announced in December and in November as well. The key is to produce those fights that would have been Sky pay-per-view as part of your monthly subscription. Of course, we're doing that with Dillian White. I think Saturday's close. Smith Fowler, great fight, not a pay-per-view fight, but still a great card. Another big pay-per-view fight coming in December. So that's when you start looking at value. And again, our US schedule, which a show will be announced this Saturday on air, and also November and December as well. So I think, next week, we've got Friday night, we're in Austria, Hergovic. Saturday night, we've got Laraja against Sharat with Jordan Gill. I think Dalton Smith's on in Austria, John Ryder. It's every week, and that's what we want to get to with Dazn, is to having a show basically every single weekend.
And Eddie, talk to me about the return of Dillian White. He's returning in October at London. Who's he going to be facing? Will it be Franklin? Will it be Charles Martin?
I like the Areola fight, to be honest with you. I mean, he wants to fight Andy Ruiz, and I think they had a good fight last time out. I think White against Areola would be a war for how long it lasts. The EBU have ordered him to fight Marco Hook, which was a bit of a strange one. We haven't really thought about that. That came through the last couple of days. Jermaine Franklin has actually signed an agreement to fight Dillian White. He's 20-0 from America. But I think of those guys, I would, from a profile perspective and a US perspective, I would choose Areola.
And finally, I spoke to the WBC president last week. He told me that Jake Paul's growth of boxing. Do you think he's growth of boxing?
I don't think he's doing any harm. Yeah, I mean, it's quite remarkable what those guys have achieved. Like, if you look at the show, it was pretty impressive. I mean, as a promoter, I watched him come out. I mean, what was there, 15,000 people there, loads of hype. I'm sure it did great numbers. The product, in my opinion, is not great. Like, they can't really fight, and I think when you talk about a novelty act, it's only novel for so long. But you have to respect what they're doing, and at least he's fighting. Like, he's better than some fighters.
Do you think he's better than Fury, Tommy? That is, not Tyson, obviously.
No, I don't. I mean, I heard Tommy Fury look dreadful, but you know, Tommy's a young fighter, and you know, he's a boxer. But I've no idea who'd win that fight. But I just don't think Tommy's a big enough. Like, for me, if I'm Jake Paul now, I'm going. Let's be honest. It's getting a bit boring, and it's going to get harder to make this kind of money. Let's just fight Conor McGregor or someone like that. Let's go to the bank and let's make it at 170 something if he can get down there, and just let's almost end this now. Do you know what I mean? Because it's gonna, like, I haven't watched the whole fight, but I watched some of it and it was pretty bad, and it's gonna get worse and worse.
Yeah.
So I think just cash in. But I think what they're doing, I don't see any harm to boxing. I think the biggest thing is it puts boxing under more pressure to produce. because they're doing good numbers. Like, I don't know what, I mean, sometimes you hear 500,000, sometimes you're 1 million, even if it's anywhere in the middle. Manny Pacquiao did 200,000 buys. So you have to be careful in the sport that this doesn't become the norm, because I don't want that as the norm.
What numbers are Dazn doing as subscribers?
Big numbers. I mean, every show at Fight Camp was pretty much double the audience of our previous Sky show. So, you know, we're in a great position. Now we have to keep the schedule nice and strong with the inevitable increase in price. But many people thought it would be a lot more expensive than $7.99. So, but we have to keep the volatility of the schedule and the quality of the schedule. So I do. Go on.
Do you think you mentioned Jake Paul, Conor McGregor? Do you think Jake Paul could beat Conor McGregor?
No.
Not even in boxing rules. Not
No, I don't
talking
think
UFC
so.
in a cage, but
No, I
boxing.
think with Conor, I don't know enough about his history, but I do believe he has some kind of sort of amateur pedigree in boxing. Like Tyrone Woodley didn't do anything. Like he just followed him around. And by the way, I was actually joking about it the other day with my old man, because I said, someone said to me, "Would you fight Jake Paul?" To me, and I'm like 250 pounds or something like that, right? And I'm thinking, well, I'd have to cut a leg off like that. And my dad said to me, "You know something?" He said, "You'd be fucked after a round." And he's true. So one thing I do give Jake Paul credit for is he does 8 threes. That ain't easy, you know. And I know it wasn't at a ferocious pace, but you have to respect him for getting in there. And he took a couple of right hands. But they're very clever, these kids. I mean, don't forget, I did a fight with Jake Paul against Anderson Gibb, and I did Logan against KSI. They're very bright people. So, and he's putting the work in. But I just think now, if I'm him, I'm not gonna just take average money and get beat. I want to take it to the, you know, I want to say to Conor McGregor, Conor, what are you doing in MMA? This does 2 million pay-per-view buys. This fight, we're both gonna make a fortune. None of us will get hurt, which is the important thing. So,
Eddie, what's the latest with Demetrius Andre?
so he's going to fight in November. I keep reaching out to PBC about a Charlo fight, but I must have the wrong number, so I don't get any replies on it. Jason Quigley's there. I would like to see Felix Cash fight, to be quite honest. If I can't make a big fight, I'd rather give an opportunity to a Brit, you know, or Jason Quigley.
I heard you were heading up to Sheffield to see AJ. Have you been to see him since? What you expecting?
Saw him last week at the Sky promo. Relaxed, in great shape. He's got great sparring. Just flown some more sparring in today, actually. He feels good.
People saying Usyk is his toughest fight.
Possibly. I mean, I still think there's question marks, isn't there? I mean, listen, maybe Usyk has now adapted to the heavyweight division, and he's going to be a major problem, or maybe you'll get what we saw against Chisora, which I don't think would be good enough to beat AJ.
Eddie, we saw Frank put on some of his fighters on the Jake Paul card. Is that something you would potentially look into doing, putting some of your prospects on a Jake Paul undercard or a card of that kind?
Done it about 3 years ago.
Yeah, and you wouldn't want to put it in again?
I wouldn't. I don't think I would do another YouTube fight right now, a YouTube fight. And I don't actually class Tyrone Woodley against Jake Paul as a YouTube fight. I class that as a fight. To be honest, I don't see why we shouldn't class that as a fight. It's 8 3-minute rounds with 10-ounce gloves on. You know, one of you guys could go and try and get a license and go and have a fight. So, but I think the model works well. When we did KSI against Logan Paul, I put Devin Haney on, I put Billy Joe Saunders on, and last Saturday they put Daniel Dubois on and Tommy Fury on. It's great for them. You know, when have they ever boxed in front of an arena like that with 15,000 people? I don't think they're boxing an arena with 5,000 people. So big eyes in America, and I think it was good for Dubois and Tommy Fury.
And Eddie, any talks of potential fights on the undercard of Indian White show on the 30th?
Yeah, we got a press conference here tomorrow. No, at the weigh-in, where we'll be announcing some big news for just something that's very interesting coming up, and a fight that will be on the undercard for that fight on October 30th, and it will be another Smith Fowler, Warrington, Lara type undercard. You know, we're going to stack these things from top to bottom.
Eddie, Maxi, if he comes through the fight with Giovanni strap on, Devin Haney his opponent, will we find Maxi in the ring with Devin Haney?
I'd like to give him the opportunity. I just feel like we're under a bit more pressure to come up with a bigger name, really. Like, you know, if it's not Jojo Diaz, then he's Richard Comey. You know, that I believe that's a good fight. But you know, I like giving opportunities to UK fighters, so maybe Devin will come over and fight him over it.
Alan Smith at Sky Sports referred to your venture at Dazn, liking it to Frank going over to Box Nation. Your thoughts on that sort of comments?
Yeah, I think if you look at what's behind Dazn and you know, their plans, I think that was a little bit of a strange comment, but they've got to try and come out fighting. You know, Johnny Nelson gave a decent interview yesterday, and they're a good platform. Do you know what I mean? But I feel like when they said, "Oh, we don't need a front man anymore," it's a massive mistake. Massive mistake. I mean, look at what I'm having to do now. Talk to you lot. Fucking hell. You know, luckily I'm only doing it for half an hour. Normally I'll be doing it for 3 hours. But that's your job. So when you do a Sky show, who's going to come up here and talk to you?
Well, what do you make of Ben Shalom? Is he the right choice? You could have gone with Alciesta, Calais Sutherland, Steve Wood.
I don't know. I mean, fair play to him. Like, I don't really know anything about him. I mean, I've seen a few stories or whatever. I don't really take any notice of that till you meet someone. But I don't. You know, you've got to. I was talking to some fighters about it yesterday. It's all very well saying it's about the fighters, and it's always about the fighters. Of course it is. But when the fighters are training or sleeping or not wanting to talk to anyone, it's your obligation as a promoter to drive their profile, to be out there pushing the machine, speaking on their behalf. And that's what I do for a living. And any promoter will do that. Callie Sutherland will do that. So this guy, Ben, his obvious approach is I don't do interviews and I don't do... But that's, you know, you're not really a promoter if you do that. I mean, Al Heyman doesn't either, but he's an advisor. You can do that from behind the scenes. A promoter's job is different, and you can't really rely on Adam Smith to get out there and beat the drum about these shows, and because it's a different audience, it's a different world. You can't engage with those people. So, but honestly, people keep asking, "Oh, what do you think?" I think it's great, because I want to feel like there's competition. I want my broadcaster to feel like there's competition, because they'll be even more aggressive. And you know, it's great. And look, this is a young guy who's got. I know he's not a boxing guy and he doesn't have that experience, but he's somehow carved out these dates. Good luck to him.
What's the bigger void to fill? Sky losing someone like yourself, or Dazn or Matchroom losing the big machine at Sky Sports?
We wouldn't have left Sky.
If you enjoyed the video, feel free to hit the like, subscribe, and share. As always, if you want to support us to the next level, head over to the patreon.com/ThaBoxingVoice. We have tons of exclusive from Border Wars, Entitled, betting shows, the list goes on and on and on. But in addition to that, if you guys have questions for fighters, trainers, and promoters, this is where you can submit them. We will run out, get these questions answered, and put it back on the show just for you guys. Appreciate it. Peace.